I never wanted to be confrontational, and I told him that. I never wanted to make him feel guilty, nor did I want him to be or feel accountable to be. I forgive him totally, unconditionally, and that was it. But I had a question, two questions I wanted to ask him. And, I asked him in the way that I'm talking to you now, in a very friendly way, and I said, look, in your letter, you said you felt justified in blighting a 10-year-old boy, or felt justified in what you done. I find it hard to believe that you can justify blighting a 10-year-old boy. And he said, what I meant by that, Richard, was that when I made the decision to fire a rubber bullet, I never meant to cause the damage I caused. And if I had realised that, I would have never fired it. So he says, when I made the decision to fire it, I felt justified. I am not justifying the outcome. And I said, that's fine, I accept that. And the other question was that at the time, the usual propaganda machine clicks into place, and the news headlines were that day when I was shot was young hoodlum, blinded by a rubber bullet or shot by a rubber bullet or whatever. And I said to Charles, look, I wasn't a rioter. And are you saying, no, I said to Charles, are you saying that I was a rioter? Because it was very important to me that, just me personally, not nobody else really. And Charles said to me, no, Richard, I wasn't saying you were a rioter. And in fact, I didn't even see you. So I accepted that. And that, as far as I was concerned, it was me and him going on really well. We chatted for 4 hours, 3/4, chatted about his family, my family, chatted about my parents. I took a photograph of my parents and kept it in my pocket. I sort of decided at least they'd be with me. And if it was appropriate, I would bring out the photograph and let him see the sort of the two people behind me in many ways. And, I did that and let him see it, because it humanises things. And meeting him humanised things for me as well. So, sorry, it's a long answer, but it was an amazing experience. It really was. It's one thing to be able to forgive somebody. It was another thing being able to tell them you forgive them. It was just an amazing experience, I remember he gave me a lift back to the airport. And I was walking in there and I had my mobile phone switched off because I didn't want any interruptions. And everybody back home was on tenterhooks wondering if he threw me in the river, or I don't know what they thought Charles was going to do, or kidnap me or something. And so there was that fear and concern for me and all that. And Charles stayed with me right up until the girl at Edinburgh Airport come to get me to board the plane. So I wasn't even able to switch on my phone then because I was boarding a plane. So walking down the corridor towards the plane, I had left Charles then, obviously, at the departures, and this young air hostess said to me, well, Mr. Moore, how did you enjoy your visit to Scotland today? And I thought, how the hell do I answer this? And I said there, I lost my sight through being shot in Northern Ireland by a rubber bullet. And she says, oh, God, that's terrible, that's terrible. And I says, you see the man that handed me over to you? He was the man that shot me. And I swear at that point in time, she thought, I have a complete lunatic attached to my head. And she never spoke another word. That's a fact. But it was great.
I want to know how your education, how your teachers, you said you wanted the teachers to tell the story and to about situations around the world and working to overcome poverty. How is that going on in Ireland today, Northern Ireland today? Is it working? Is it teaching this program? Because in Europe you have a thing called development education.
Yeah.
We don't have that here.
Yeah, okay. That's what I think, I think the UK and Ireland is a bit ahead of the US in terms of that. I think in the early days that the education system struggled as they were global citizenship. They used to pin this on teachers. A teacher in the school would get an extra few points in her salary, and you're in charge of global citizenship. And they hadn't got a clue what it meant or what to do with it. But What I do know is there's a real appetite for it with teachers, and it's much more structured now, but there's a real appetite among teachers for development education. And when His Holiness came to Ireland last 2013, I organised an event up in my old school, and we invited all senior educationalists from across Northern Ireland, the decision makers. And as you know, when the Dalai Lama's there, they turn up because they want to be where the Dalai Lama is. And so we used as an opportunity to get the key decision makers into the room. And and that was our ploy, as well as the message of educating the heart. And we've trained about 400 teachers now at this stage, and it's gone remarkably well. And the teachers themselves have taken on a lot of the work within the school, because compassion is not easy, but compassion leading to action is even harder. And there's no point in teachers having all this training and all this development education knowledge and compassion training unless they turn it into some kind of action. And what we're seeing is, with a lot of the teachers we're working with, that they are taking action around global citizenship and stuff like that. Now, to be honest, we have a pilot study starting now. It's in action, and it's partly funded by Life University. It's partly funded by an organisation that Mike's involved in called Secure Base, and partly funded by Children in Crossfire. And we're still looking for some more money. So if you happen to know anybody, you can write a check. It'd be great. But this pilot project is working with this whole compassion training within schools, and we're working with children who will get compassion training, and we're working with children who won't get compassion training, to see if their response in a year and a half's time is different. And hopefully His Holiness will come to Ireland next year so we can present this to him. But to answer your question, it's going very well. The problem is, within the curriculum within schools, do they know where it sits? And we've done a lot of work with the library boards, as we call them in Northern Ireland, which is the people responsible for education, to get them to see where it fits in, to see the links within the various subjects, and also where compassion fits within the curriculum as well. And we've done that very successfully. So the answer is it's going well. Sorry about the long answer, but I think it's important that you get a sense. Does that answer your question, Mark?
Yes.
Actually, my name is Rebecca Richard, and just thank you so much for these wonderful stories that you shared with us. I have kind of a follow-up question to what Mark just asked. When you say that compassion is not easy and compassion leading to action is even harder, but this program and the training that the teachers is getting, something there is working in a way that's leading people to action. And I'm just curious to hear your thoughts about what would be some of the components of that. Like, kind of what's the meat there that's really speaking to people, that's leading them to this action?
Well, I think, first of all, what I mean by being difficult, I think in today's world, within the education system, now, I have to say I'm no expert, right? But in my experience, in today's education system and society today, everything is geared toward results. Everything is geared towards achieving. And if you don't achieve, then you failed. There's no middle ground there. It's either you do well or you don't do well. Schools are geared up in such a way that they need results. If they don't get results, it's a bad school. It's a great school if they get results. So when that's our only focus, then my view is it just takes the whole vocation and compassion out of the system. And but what you discover is when you meet the teachers, they're craving for that type of approach, compassion, a more compassionate approach to deal with, issues in a different way, the educating the heart type of thing. So I think that, and I suppose again it's something that His Holiness talks about in his book Beyond Religion, where, and like we obviously have the religious dimension in Northern Ireland as well, where really there are core elements to all of us that are the same. Our core values are the same no matter what religion. He talks about beyond religion, in other words, before ever religion even existed. There was basic human values that we all had. And I'm sure much you are better in theology than I am. So, but in my limited experience, I can't disagree with that. And even basic animals have core values and compassion and that type of thing. It's part of our human DNA. And if you can tap into that and develop that, then I think that will lead to how you respond to an issue. For example, when my daughter falls in the back garden and hurts her knee, I feel it. If somebody insults my daughter or offends her, I feel it deeply. I think that you experience real compassion when you can actually feel like that about somebody who's not your daughter. And that's what we've got to work on. I think we've worked very hard to take it out of people. We've worked very hard to remove what is natural. And I think to some degree it's been successful. And what I believe Educating the Heart does, and our brand of Educating the Heart, where we incorporate it into the title and work with teachers in schools in terms of global citizenship, does that. So, that's what I would say about that, I think.
Thank you.
So Richard, my name is Kristen Kumpf, and I actually work with Rebecca in our grassroots organizing department here. And one of the gifts that we have is to work with people of faith in churches all over the world to help them figure out how to do this journey of actually having compassion that does lead to action. And I'm still thinking about your statement of you can take away my eyesight, but you can't take away my vision. And I find so often that one of the biggest challenges we end up having when we are working with people is they haven't yet grabbed a vision for change and for themselves and for the people that they love. And I find that sometimes that's because they're stuck so deeply in the problem and all of the dynamics around that problem that it's hard for them to even envision what change would look like. Sometimes I find it's that they're so disconnected from each other, from other people, that they're not even at a point where they can have a vision. So I'm wondering, given your statement about vision, what you've learned about how to inspire a vision in other people, about what it means to have a vision, and how that vision is part of folks going from compassion into action.
God, how do you answer that?
However you want.
That's a good question, and sometimes I just think that it's very difficult for me to answer because, I have been given that gift of vision, and I think, I suppose for me, it's more than just a single answer. I think it's a life change. I think it's a lifestyle change. I think I was totally blessed with the parents that I had because they had vision, even though they didn't know it and they probably never articulated it and would never see it in that light. But they had. My mother had vision. And I suppose it all comes back to that core element of compassion, and she had it. She had compassion. I mean, when I brought the soldier to meet my mammy, 2007. She was 88 years of age. And I saw her with that soldier, the man that blinded her son, the man that hurt her so much, and the compassion that she naturally had. So I think it's something that needs to be inherent, that sort of nurture thing that we probably work hard to take away. Also, vision doesn't have to be big things. Like I talk about vision for children in Crossfire and vision for me, and it is a big vision in a way. But, my vision for me, my children's vision doesn't have to be as big as that. You know, it's learning to be happy. It's learning to be content. It's learning that, you know, that person that you're looking at opposite you is valuable and important and all that sort of stuff. So vision doesn't have to be a big plan, I don't think. It just has to be something very ordinary. It can be something very ordinary. And, you know, the risk could be that when you set a vision, like the vision I have with children in Crossfire, if you don't achieve that, then you've failed. In some way, it's had the counter effect from what you want. Same with forgiveness. I talk about forgiveness all the time. But I realise there are people out there that struggle with forgiveness, that can't forgive or find it very difficult to forgive. Does that make them a lesser person? Does it make them a failure? Absolutely not. It doesn't. But always I tell the story in the hope that it holds a light to sort of say, look, this is one possible way that you can get over what's going on in your life. And the same way anybody that you're dealing with in your work, and you probably have more answers than I do, to be honest, but, you know, if you can say to somebody, look, there is another way, that's a vision. You know, where would you like to see yourself in a year's time, 2 years' time, 5 years' time? You can be there, you can do that, that is possible. I think probably a lot of the people that you deal with have a vision. It's just they don't ever see themselves achieving it. So it's about hope, it's about confidence and their own ability to get where they want to be emotionally or career or ambition or whatever. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's all I can say there. Like, you know, I think vision's a great thing. But I wouldn't want it to be the debilitating fact as well, you know.
Richard, my name is Clayton Childers, and I think one thing that stood out to me was the story of your brother who was so angry and ready to lash out, and your mother stepping in and saying, it doesn't solve anything to hurt somebody else the way we've been hurt.
Mm.
But I've got to imagine there was this pressure from the community to, you know, to take the angry path. Do you remember episodes where you felt like your parents or even you were being pressured to become a leader of the opposition with
Aye.
carrying the sword and all of that?
Well, I had a brother end up in the ARA.
Mm.
Do you know? I ended up in prison after I was shot. I have a sister who married a British soldier after I was shot. So there within that family alone, you can see the pendulum and so many swings of the pendulum.
Mm-hmm.
And you had these incredibly wonderful parents in the middle, accepting the fact that her daughter married a British soldier and loving him and loving her the way they should. You know, against the torn issues that went on in the house in terms of why was she going out with a British soldier? You know, that was, the community didn't like that. I mean, my sister's name appeared in a Republican magazine as a potential target. You know, because she was what they called a soldier doll. That's what they called them in those days. So there was a gun battle the night after I was shot. I mean, the IRA had a sustained gun battle at the barracks the night after I was shot. There was a lot of anger. The woman of the area protested down at the barracks. And probably justifiably so in some ways, you know, that they're down to protest about children being safe going to school, things like that. So there was a lot of outpouring of anger, a lot of protest, it was a big, me being blinded was a big issue. It was. There's not too many, there was one other child in Derry killed by a rubber bullet, but I'm the only person that was blinded by a rubber bullet. So it wasn't like and then it happened on a playground. So in that sense there was. And like even when I brought Charles over to Derry, my mammy, no problem meeting him at all, like she was just incredible, as I said. But you know, some of my brothers still wouldn't meet him. You know, and You know, I remember when the Dalai Lama came in 2007, and that's why I brought Charles over, because for me the Dalai Lama represented everything that I believe in: peace, compassion, forgiveness, all those stuff. And he was so kind to me in many ways. And so I thought the greatest gift that I could give the Dalai Lama would be me and Charles together. So me and Charles had a private meeting with the Dalai Lama. But, you know, the Dalai Lama's own idea about bringing Charles on the stage in the public event in Derry, which I had never done in a month of Sundays. And I had told lies to the press that Charles wasn't in Derry, and they sort of began to hear that Charles was there, the soldier, and I said, no, he was here, but he's gone home. And then that afternoon, the Dalai Lama invites Charles on the stage in the Millennium Forum, unknowns to me or anybody else. But the reason why I'm telling you that story is me and Charles got a standing ovation at that event. But there's one person that didn't stand up, and that was my brother. And I suppose I have that vision in my head of over 1,000 people standing and him sitting down. And it kind of helps me realise that, you know, they're on a journey too. And, you know, it was very difficult for them. But what they do say to me is, and I would joke with them sometimes, I would say to my brothers, Charles is coming over this week, I think, could he stay in your house? And they would say things like, well, hell I will. But they would say things like, you know, look, we're happy with what you do and we support you in what you're doing, but we can't do it ourselves. Now, that's not all my brothers, just one or two of the older guys. The younger guys are all right. The older guys, they've probably seen all the hurt, and they've seen what it done to my mommy and daddy, and they just find it hard to fully let go. But they support me in what I'm doing. And the thing is, you know, if they didn't meet Charles, it wouldn't make it any easier, because Charles is not easy to like. You know, he's very military. You know, oh, how are you? Absolutely delighted to have met you. You're quite an amazing chap. You know, that sort of, you know, sounds a bit like Mike. Sorry, mate.
I'm really pleased that he's now got this PowerPoint, because there's a picture of Charles there, because I've been in too many rooms where people I know think I'm Charles. Particularly at schools.
But it's an amazing thing about Charles, right? I've done schools, I've done talks like this with Charles, we've done bigger talks and smaller talks, and people always say to Charles, are you sorry? And Charles would go, no, actually, I've never been asked to apologise, nor do I feel I need to apologise, right? And I'm sitting there beside him, and people are, this Sherman take a breath, and like, did he actually say that? Right? And, but you know, I have always felt that Charles was sorry. He just couldn't say it, right? But he's a politically correct time bomb, right? So I have to prep him wherever we go, because they get him to say things the right way, because he just says things all wrong. It doesn't mean to say them all wrong, it's just not sensitive, right? So about 6 years after we had met and we were doing one of these talks in Derry, and we were planning to do a talk in the Craigan estate. My nerves were shattered, right? And we were doing a talk in the Craigan estate, believe it or not, in a room above a supermarket where Charles's army camp was. The supermarket is there now, but it used to be an army camp. And that's where he slept and lived around the time that he shot me. So we were going right to that site, and it was amazing in a way. But I said to Charles anyway, I said, look, Charles, we're talking in the Craigan estate tomorrow night. We were over in the hotel, right, talking. And I said, we're talking in the Craigan estate tomorrow night, Charles. Now, I just want to say to you that the people in the Craigan estate don't see the British Army in the same light that you see the British Army, right? And they would have been hurt by the British Army, and you know, and all that sort of stuff. And the second thing is, I am a son of the Craigan estate. So I just want you to be sensitive to all of that, and you may be asked the sorry question. And Charles turned around to me and he says, Richard, I am sorry. 6 years after I met him, he told me he was sorry. And I thought, you know what? He's on a journey too. And I just happened to be 100 miles down the road on my journey ahead of Charles. And you know, I learnt in reconciliation, you have to greet people where you meet them. You have to accept them who they are. You have to accept them for who they are. You have to realise where they're coming from, and you have to allow them the space to be what they need to be, or who they are. And when you do that, that creates the conditions under which they can continue their journey. You know, and when we went up to Craigan that night, lo and behold, didn't somebody ask, have you said sorry? And Charles couldn't bring himself to say in public he was sorry. So he turned around to me and he said, I said I was sorry, didn't I? And I said, yes, you did, Charles. And I turned around and I said, Charles has already said sorry to me. And the dynamic changed like that. And at the end up, everybody wanted their photograph taken with Charles. And nobody wanted their photograph taken with me. That's a fact. I was shoved down the road. He was a superstar. But it was great. And I was delighted. You know, I really was. Delighted for him. And I was delighted for the story. Because it helps people. But the thing I always say about saying sorry, you see, if I rely on Charles to say sorry to me, then I can't progress. Forget about Charles again. If I'm relying on him to say sorry, then he is holding a key to a chamber in my brain that only he can unlock. Whereas I don't need him to say sorry. I don't care if he doesn't say sorry. I forgive him. So he doesn't hold any key to any chambers in my mind or my heart. But the second thing is, by me not forcing him to be sorry, to say sorry, he arrived at that point himself. And to me, that's a more genuine sorry than anything else. You know. I don't know how that answers your question there, but
That's a great answer.
Rick Reinhardt, we have a horrible problem in this country of police shooting people.
yeah, I know. I see it there on TV.
You know, particularly as compared to most of the other Western countries. What should we be doing about that?
Jeekers, I don't know, Rick. I mean, I think first of all, you need to take the guns out of society. That's my honest view on it. I just can't get my head around that. That how guns are just so readily available, and that whole gun mentality. I mean, I remember taking my daughters into a McDonald's down around. I was on my way from Los Angeles to what do you call it? The Grand Canyon, and we were driving. I wasn't driving. I just want to hasten to add that. And we went down to McDonald's on the way, and somewhere along the journey, and this guy come walking on with a rifle and sat down and ordered McDonald's and left again. And I'm thinking, what the hell does he need a rifle for? And and what's it all about? Like, so, in that sense, I think that's one of the things that need to happen. I think you probably need to examine why people feel the need to have guns and why people. But I think I nearly sound as if I'm repeating myself, but I think you're going back to basics. People have got to learn to be more compassionate. People have got to learn to trust each other, love each other, care about each other, and all the what I meant to say earlier on to one of the girls' questions there was compassion action becomes easy when you actually compassion becomes entrenched in you, because it's a natural thing. It doesn't like an action anymore. It's a natural reaction to the person that you are, and the same with the guns and stuff like that there. But I don't know what you do in the immediate term here with America, and it does seem to be shoot first and ask questions later. It does seem to be that people seem to find it easy to shoot somebody dead, and it's all right. You have to question them. I always say about Charles. Why did Charles fire a rubber bullet? And this might answer your question better, Rick. Why did Charles fire a rubber bullet at a 10-year-old boy in a school playground? or he actually fired at a group of children. He didn't fire at me specifically, I have to say that. But he fired a rubber bullet at a group of children. Why did he do that? What led Charles to think it was okay to fire a rubber bullet at a group of children? I think it's society. His society, the community that he comes from, told him it was all right to do that. And even supported and protected him in doing that. So society has to take responsibility. It's all right to blame Charles. And the same way that we have men and women all over Northern Ireland who planted bombs, who blew up people, who killed people, who maimed people, who were involved in so-called paramilitary activity. I didn't grow up in a society of terrorists. You know, people in my society became terrorists. And you have to examine the reasons why people become terrorists. You have to examine the reasons why people think it's all right to fire a rubber bullet at a 10-year-old boy. You have to examine the reasons why a policeman in America thinks it's all right to pull a gun out and shoot somebody who's black or somebody who is running away from a scene, that it's okay to actually shoot them dead. What mentality must you have to do that? Who is it that is helping you believe it's okay to do that? And that's what you've got to tackle, I think. Unfortunately, it's not a quick answer. It mightn't even be the right answer, but that's what I think.
I think we have time for one more question.
Yeah, Haniel, Richard, I'm Haniel. I'm one of those whom you met earlier.
Yeah.
Yes, I want to know, actually, what you just said, leads into this question that I have. How are for instance, first of all, can you describe the situation in Northern Ireland right now? And secondly, how are the conditions that gave rise to the violence being addressed?
Well, the situation in Northern Ireland now is we have peace. It is a peaceful place, there's no question about it. But I believe a lot of the prejudice and hatreds and angers of the past are just underneath the surface. And added to that is the hurts caused by 30 years of violence. So there was a certain level of hatred, anger, sectarianism that led to the violence. And now the violence has had another layer of hurt and anger on top of all that. So the good thing is, and the good news is, yes, we have peace in Northern Ireland. People aren't shooting one another anymore, or blowing up each other. There's no real conflict on the streets of Northern Ireland. And I would say there's more conflict, and I was talking to Susan about Chicago and stuff there earlier on. I would say there's more happening in places like that on a daily basis than would happen in a year in Northern Ireland. But I think we can't take it for granted. I think there are young people who have the prejudices that I talked about earlier on in my talk. And I think we've got to focus on that. I think that in Northern Ireland, the most money was spent in any conflict resolution in the world was spent in Northern Ireland. But I still think we're nowhere near the meeting of hearts and the meeting of minds for a lot of people. And what's going on at the moment is at community level, you have loads of community groups who are involved in all sorts of sort of peace building work and doing good work. And I think there just needs to be more of it. And I do think that, the work that we would do with teachers, and if the schools actively embrace compassion training, then I think it's the answer myself, that's been honest. I think that's where the answer lies. But they don't know it yet. But I do think that's where it lies.
I want to say, how much, were you finished?
Oh, I'm done. I was just nodding to him.
Sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt. I just want to say that it's a real joy to always be with you, and I'm very grateful for who you are, and I'm most grateful for how you help us see ourselves, and help us see the potential that we have for forgiveness and for reconciliation. And it is such a gift to be with you. So thank you, Richard, for being
Thank you,
here.
Linda. Thank you. Thank you. That's great.
Richard and Michael have not eaten, so I'm going to be sure they have some food. If you would like to pull up a chair and chat some more, please feel free to. And thank you
Yeah.
for being here.
All right, thank you.
All
No,
right.
it's great. Thanks, everybody. Thank you. That's great. Oh, dear.
Okay, there's some food.
All right, that's
Do
great.
you want, how does this work?
I'll get you a.
How does this work? How does this work? You bring it, I eat it. That's how it works.
You're really so great.
Oh, thank you.
You know, there were so many things that I was, well,
Thank you so much.